adjourned, 9 p.m., and we are back in session. Floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. At this time, I'd like to call our architect, which is Chris Sinzak.
Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth of the matter pending before the board?
I do.
State your name and address, please.
Christopher Sinzak, 4 Blake Drive, Clark, New Jersey.
And Chris, just do me a favor, you're a light talker, so you'll have to be loud like me this evening. Okay, so Mr. Sinzak, by way of background, can you tell the board where you received your education, what licenses you hold?
Yes, I graduated from New Jersey Institute of Technology in 1988. Apprenticed for 3 years and was licensed in New Jersey in 1991. I have been working for Appel Design Group since 1993.
Okay, and in that capacity, have you testified in front of planning boards, zoning boards of adjustments, boards of this nature before?
Yes, I have.
And have you ever been in front of this board?
Not this board, no.
Okay, so this is your first time?
Correct.
And as of this evening, are all your licenses current?
Yes, they are.
Any questions on qualification? Accept him as an expert.
Thank you, thank you. So, Mr. Zinzak, just for clarity, what's already been marked as A2 is a color rendering you put together of the front elevation of the home, which is already part of the architectural plans that are in the board members' packets, correct?
Correct.
And-
We just took this front elevation that's on drawing A01.
Sir, you're gonna have to speak into a speaker.
We took the drawing from drawing A01, the front elevation, and we just put color to it. And
Okay,
came up
so
with
for
this.
clarity of the record, just so it's clear, what's the last revision date of A01?
10/11/23.
So, sorry, October 11, 2023, correct? And that should match all of the board member. All of the board member packets.
It should, yes, correct.
Okay, thank you. So before we move forward, just so the board has it to look at. Is it us?
Could be us.
I got it open.
Sign for that.
Yeah. So, just while the board members are listening to the testimony, the architect did make smaller copies of the A2 exhibit.
One goes to the secretary, one goes to the table here, for members of the public who want to come up and see it.
Okay,
Thank you. And again, if we could reposition that easel so it's visible to members of the public.
I have one member of the public. Thank you. All right, is that a little better?
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, and then,
Do I have my copy?
yes. Never forget it. Okay, so Mr. Zinzak, as the board has already heard, the applicant here, Mr. Fletcher, is the owner of the property. However, he will not be the one residing in the dwelling that's proposed, correct?
Correct.
So you met with the purchaser who's under contract, correct, to buy the lot and build the new construction dwelling, correct?
Correct.
And in meeting with the purchaser, what were some of their primary concerns when designing their new home?
So the couple I met with, they are, I don't want to say elderly, but they are at the age of retirement. And the biggest concern for them was that this was going to be an age-in-place house that they were going to live in till the end. And they wanted everything fairly accessible because they do have a little bit of a mobility issue. So living on a single level was very important to them. So we started out the design process where they wanted to design a ranch with all the bedrooms on the first floor, nothing on the second floor, nothing in the basement. We quickly found out that because of the lot coverage, we could not accommodate all the functions that they wanted, so we had to expand to a partial second floor. So the house is designed with the master on the first floor, the laundry facilities, the kitchen, the living spaces, and the garage, all on the first floor. The second floor is, we added two extra bedrooms, and those are for guests. You know, very rarely will they be used. And then the house did not have any kind of study space or office, so we designed a loft on the second floor for them to use as an open study area. The gentleman who is buying the house, he has a collectible car, so we oversized the garage and gave him storage in the back to keep his car. And we also made the garage a little bit wider and deeper than a minimal house would be, just so he can get out of the car and get into the house with little, you know, with any mobility questions that he has in the future.
Then you also left room for there to be a future chairlift, right, to bring you into the first floor living.
Yes, the garage was designed that if they do have problems getting around, we could easily accommodate in the corner. We could accommodate a chairlift to get them from the garage up into the house. So the corner of the garage here still will allow enough room to park a car and get a chairlift.
And with that being said, I know one of the questions or concerns one of the board professionals has is, what if anything is in the basement? Did you provide a basement floor plan?
Yes, based on the comments from the
Okay,
town.
so stop for just a moment, because you have to mark that as an exhibit. This would be A3, which is, what do you have it titled there?
A 3.1.
And what is the date on your exhibit?
12/5/23. And I provided a small copy of the basement plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
She is one
I
for
know,
it.
I just wanted you to see there's
Okay.
nothing there.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay. Oh, we gave her one.
Okay, great, thank you.
So the intent of this exhibit was just to show that he plans to do nothing in the basement. At this point, he's not planning to finish the basement. It has a door to the outside and some windows, just because grade is dropped off so severely that it gave him an opportunity to use that basement for, you know, lawn chairs and whatever he needs during winter time to bring in easily from grade. So there was never any intent to do any kind of finished space at that, you know, at this point.
So just for clarity, there's no basement bathroom, there's no basement laundry, there's no anything in the basement.
Nothing.
All of the laundry, bathrooms, et cetera, all part of the first floor living plan.
Correct.
And can you just go back to that first floor living plan a little bit and just kind of walk the board through the design of the house from when they come in through the garage?
So you come in from the garage, up a couple steps, and you're into the back laundry room. And there's a rear closet just for hanging coats and boots and mops and whatever else you want to hang. And then you enter directly into the kitchen. And then behind the kitchen, we have a dinette, which is open to the great room. To the south, past the stair going upstairs and downstairs, there's a dining room. To the right of the dining room, we have a open foyer. And then to the right of that is the whole master suite. So we have a bathroom in the front, a walk-in closet, and then a bedroom. In the back, behind the dinette, the couple was very concerned. They would like to use the outside, but they know they can't be in the sun, so they wanted a roof structure to stay out of the sun and still be able to enjoy the outside. And they decided to put a screen around it just so they can use it, when bugs come out and it starts to get, a little bit nasty out. They can still use the screen porch. And then there's behind the great room and behind the master, there is a deck that they can access from their bedroom. So it'd just be a wood frame deck. Second floor. Like I said, you come up the stairs, there's only 2 bedrooms and 1 hall bathroom, and then behind the hall bathroom, there's just a loft which will be used as their study or guest, or study or den.
So altogether, there's how many bedrooms and bathrooms in the house?
3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a powder room.
And just for clarity of the record, what is the total square footage of the house? First floor, separate from second floor, and then total.
Okay, so the first floor is 1,951 square foot livable. The garage is 851 square feet. That totals 2,802 square feet building coverage, not including the screen porch and the covered porch at the front. They add up 208 square feet and 130 square feet for a total of 3,100 square feet on the first floor. The second floor has 851 square feet. So if you add the first floor and the second floor living space, we are at 3,951 square feet.
What was that number again?
3,951.
Okay, so going back to the
So, I'm
first.
sorry, so, Rob, you mentioned, you added 2 numbers before on the first floor plan. Which 2 did you add?
1951 is living space,
Okay,
851 is garage.
851 or 811?
851. I'm sorry, 811. Oh, I think I added that wrong.
Okay,
You are correct. I'm sorry, 811. Drawing was correct and I transposed it in my notes incorrectly.
so what's the revised, what's the corrected sum?
So that would be, yeah, 2762.
And then you add the 851 to that figure, correct?
Then you add,
No, the
No.
811's already on that
that's,
number.
correct, that's
I'm
811.
sorry, I
You
meant,
add the
you
208.
831, I mean 851, second floor. There we go.
Well, he's not done with first floor yet,
Okay,
Mr.
all right.
Chairman, because at
Okay,
1951, right, is the living area.
Correct.
At 811, which is the garage, that brings you to 2762, which is the dwelling. And then,
208 for the screen porch.
right,
And 130 for the covered porch at the front.
because in the borough, the covered porch and the screen patio count as building coverage.
So what's the total first floor area?
3,100.
And then
Yeah.
and then the second floor is 851, so it's a total of 3,951.
Exactly, Mr. Sullivan.
So 3951 is the correct number. Total, second floor, first floor.
You said it's 3,100, it's a total first floor. 1851 is the second floor?
851.
851. And 851 keeps getting punted around there.
So the floor area on Mr. Viola's plan is slightly different than that number we just calculated.
Correct, as Mr. Chairman indicated before, and as your planner's letter points out, there is an error on Mr. Miola's, which is why he mentioned before, we'll call it 3,100, which is actually the first floor calculations 3,100.
I think he was at 3099, so it was 1 foot different.
I think Mr. Sullivan just said the building floor area was different.
Yeah, you came up with 3,951, the plan, the engineer's plan
No.
says 3,612.
Yeah, he's not counting in the porch
Right.
and the other one, that's what it comes
My
down to.
point was that it's, the numbers
It's
don't
consistent.
jive, that's the only thing, yeah.
Correct, correct. The architect's numbers when it comes to the dwelling are the exact correct numbers. So, Mr. Zinzak, when the applicant, a buyer and yourself learned that the screened patio and the front covered porch, which is an aesthetic design, correct?
Correct.
Counted towards building coverage. If you remove those items, you would still be slightly over on building coverage, correct?
Yes, that would only come to I'm sorry, 338 total.
338,
208 plus 130.
that would be if they were removed,
If they were removed.
that would reduce it by 338.
Correct.
Right. Which would bring you down to 2,762, correct?
Correct.
Which is still 72 feet over, square feet over, sorry.
Correct.
Okay, so I know you had some conversations with the applicant's buyer as far as certain elements of the house that are very important to them, giving their intent and design of the home, correct?
Correct.
And in speaking to the applicant's buyer, they understand that the two elements that they didn't realize were part of building coverage are that front porch and that rear covered patio, correct?
Correct.
Or porch, I should say, because
Correct.
it's not a patio, it's elevated.
Correct.
So and when you spoke to them, are they willing to lose some of that front porch aesthetic?
If they're forced to do that, they would make that concession.
But as far as the rear screened area, that is, very important to the applicant for all the reasons you indicated, for outdoor living and being able to enjoy that outdoor space, correct?
Correct.
And that also goes to their mobility concerns about really being able to use some outdoor space on the first floor living accommodations, correct?
Yes, it would be very difficult for them to get to the grade, a floor down, to use it on a regular basis. So having this outdoor space on the second floor, I think would be very important to them.
Right, because the way the engineer shows the plans now, to even get around to their back, they have to go downstairs along the side of the house, or they have to go downstairs on the inside, correct?
Correct.
So again, that elevated deck / screened area is what they're foreseeing as their usable outdoor screens, space living area, correct?
Correct.
Now, when you looked at doing just a ranch and having some of the sizes that are on the first floor, did that pose problems with as far as being able to at least have a 3-bedroom home for purposes of children, grandchildren, and guests?
If we try putting the 3 bedrooms on the first floor, many of the spaces would become unusable. Their master bedroom, their bathroom, and we designed the bathroom so they could get around pretty easily with a walker or a wheelchair. If we had to shrink this down, it would be very difficult and very tight to do that. So my opinion is there's no spaces here that are exorbitantly large. And if we tried cutting that down to fit 2 more bedrooms, I think this would be an unusable house for them.
And I know when we spoke before, and there was an earlier rendition of the home, you did look at cutting some space where you were able to, such as making the master bath only accessible through the master closet, instead of having kind of more of a side-by-side, correct?
That's the current layout. Is
Right.
You walk through the walk-in, and that was directed by them. So that was, his idea on trying to make the bedroom or closet a little bit larger, and using the hallway space as part of the walk-in closet.
Instead of having a separate dedicated hallway, correct?
Correct.
And same with the laundry area, trying to kind of shrink down the footprint of the laundry area as well, correct?
Yeah, there's just enough space in there to get the washer, dryer, and a slop sink. We have no extra cabinet space, there's no folding table or anything like that, so we can't make that laundry all that much smaller and still have it function.
Now, Mr. Hall had a question, you heard him raise to the engineer about what point of the roof line was used to calculate the height.
Yeah, we did, if you look at our elevation, we calculated it to the ridge, the highest ridge. And you can see it's 30 feet 2 inches from first floor to the highest ridge. And I think we probably discussed with Mr. Miola and gave him the calculation to find the midpoint of that roof.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm confused.
I think the town ordinance asked for the midpoint of the roof dimension.
How did you instruct Mr. Miola to
I
calculate?
need the speaker.
I'm sorry.
I guess I heard something. When you coordinate with Mr. Miola, did you tell him to calculate building height to the peak of the ridge or to the midpoint of the sloping roof?
We gave him this dimension, and then I'm sure he asked me for the highest ridge to the gutter line so he could do his calculation for the midpoint of that roof.
So you did not give Mr. Miola the midpoint of the roof elevation?
Not on the drawing, no.
No, I didn't ask you that, not on the drawing. You did not give Mr. Miola directly the elevation of the midpoint of the sloping roof?
I don't remember, honestly. I don't know if I told him the number or gave it to him on a drawing.
Okay, so you left up to Mr. Miola to interpret your drawings in terms of going from the ridge line to the gutter line and coming up with the midpoint? You left that calculation to him?
No, I think I gave it to him. I'm not positive. I can't guarantee that.
Okay. Just to be clear, the roof that we're talking about is the higher roof in the middle of the building, is that correct?
The higher roof in the middle, correct.
And so just so we're clear, since I know this application has been going on for a while, with different discussions before coming to the board, are you able to say as an architect that the house can make sure that it complies with the height limit, which is the 35 feet?
Of course. There's nothing setting the ridge other than the slope of the roof, going front to back. And we chose a slope that is aesthetically pleasing. If we have to drop that to get the ridge height lower, we can do that. That's not a problem at all.
And it won't have any substantial impact on the rooms that are on that second floor?
No, nothing, no. It's all attic space, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, so one of the comments that one of the board professionals had was in regards to the attic space. There's a window up there. How do you access the attic?
The attics are accessed through an attic access panel in the ceiling. And we have windows in the attic spaces because the homeowner thought it was a great idea. I don't know why, but he thought he wanted light in every attic space for whatever reason. So I can't tell you why he wanted that, so I added windows in the attic space.
But again, you can only access the attic through the drop-down panel, correct? There's no
Correct.
stairs or anything going up into the attic,
Nope.
and the height of the attic cannot be used for habitable purposes, is that correct?
There is, in the highest attic, there is an area that is going to be 8 foot or 7 foot clear for about 6 foot in width. So if you got up there, you would have, 6 foot to stand, and then it would start sloping down from there.
So it can't be used into any type of bedroom or any other space without substantial revisions?
Correct, we would have to rework the stairs to get a set of stairs to access that attic space.
And that's why you're confident as an architect, you can drop that roof if necessary to make sure that regardless of where the measurement was taken, the house will be able to comply with the height requirements, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Questions from our professionals regarding this testimony?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm referring to our planner's report dated December 14th. Liz, I'm sorry for stealing your thunder here. But if you go to page 4 of her report, item 2B, it discusses the definition of a half a story. Did you review this section of Liz's report?
Yes, we did.
The attic, could the attic be considered under this definition as a half a story or a full story?
The attic is never considered as a story. It is, it's not living space. The only thing that could be considered a story is the basement, and through the math in the average grade, that was calculated that it's out of grade less than 50% as per your ordinance. So the basement is not considered a story above grade. So this is a 2-story house.
2 or 2.5.
Well, they don't accept the half story.
Yeah, there's no half story.
Well, half story is defined.
It's
Yeah,
defined.
it's defined, it's in my letter.
And the zoning requirement is 35 feet or 2.5 stories, so
Yeah.
there is such a thing as a half a story. So I guess my question again is, your attic, is it a half a story based on the definition in our ordinance, or is it not?
I have never considered an attic
Chris.
as half a
No,
story.
no, you're not answering the question.
Just reread her 2B, okay, the definition of a story.
Half a story.
And Mr. Hall, you said her letter stated what, because the one we have is November 21st.
It was in that letter as well.
Okay.
I didn't
Yeah.
change it.
Okay,
That's right, sir.
just wanted to make sure I didn't miss a letter.
I would have to do this calculation. So you're looking for the intersection of the roof and the wall face not more than 3 feet above the floor level, in which the space of possible floor area with a headroom of 5 feet or less occupies at least 40% of the total floor area of the story directly beneath.
What I would say, I just did this calculation, is you need to demonstrate to the board that, I guess, let's see, I can say at least 40%, that 40% of the second story is 340 square feet. And so we need to know, and what you're calling the attic level, how much of it is above 5 feet.
Okay, I can do that calculation.
Because if it is, then that might constitute a story. You know, if you don't.
Will under our statute.
It will,
It will, right.
Yeah,
And if that's the case, it's then a 3-story structure, and that's an additional variance.
That would be a C variance, yes.
And we will not go for a 3-story submission, because that involves other things for construction purposes, for fire rating, and that's not the intent here. So we will reduce the height of the house to get that under the limit of the half story.
But it may not even be an issue.
Correct.
Is what the planner is saying. I know you said you have that strip that is 6 feet. Is that a quick calculation you can do to determine if it meets?
No.
No.
I have to get on the CAD and do the measuring and do the area calculations and figure out where the, numbers are.
Okay. But so your testimony would be then, if there was in any way, shape, or form where that would not meet the definition of a half story, then you would stipulate for the record that the roof line in the attic would be changed to make it clear that it's only half a story.
Correct.
Thank you.
Regarding the future, people that live here, you mentioned someone has an antique car, I believe, something like that?
Correct.
Other than the antique car, how many other cars will this couple need or utilize?
They have 2 currently.
So a total of 3.
Correct.
Okay. So I noticed your garage is 40 feet deep, and obviously it's a 3-car garage.
Yes.
So that makes sense. Now you're solely testifying as an architect, right, not as a planner?
Correct.
So you're not addressing the building coverage variance? Now I noticed someone else in your firm signed and sealed the plans, not yourself?
The firm is Appel Design.
Right.
Larry Appel is the principal partner of the firm. I'm an associate at Appel Design Group.
But you were involved with the preparing of these plans?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Liz?
I don't think I have additional questions. That was my main question.
Questions for this witness from board members? All right, Chris, I have one. So is your client Castro or
Yes.
Fletcher? Okay.
La Castro.
So I know that you're not testifying in any way as a planner, but as part of your architectural work, did it start with analysis of the site to determine buildable area?
Yes, we did look at that to start with. And the homeowner or the purchaser, we just couldn't make it work for their needs. So we knew we were exceeding the limits, but that's what he needed to do to make this a buildable house for him.
So if that's his needs, then nothing, I heard the porch might be in play, right? But if that, other than that, there's nothing in play for reduction, is that correct?
I spoke to them about some options and taking space out of the garage, getting rid of the rear covered porch. It is in play for them. They were not thrilled with that option, but if that's what it's gonna do to get this passed, they would be agreeable to that.
So just for clarity though, because of the aging needs of the Castros, and mind you, the planning testimony has not been offered yet, okay? Right now, the first thing off the table would be the aesthetic front porch, correct?
Yes.
And how much square feet does this front porch take off?
I would still recommend having a small cover at the front entry. So out of the 130 square feet of the front porch, I could easily take off 91 square feet.
Okay. Now, as far as the covered screen porch, that is, again, you've already testified to, given the mobility issues and the use of the property and their age and sun conditions, that is something that is important to them, correct?
It is important to them.
You know,
So that's 208 square feet. But
that-
they would not sacrifice interior space to accommodate that porch. They don't wanna lose the study or the loft on the second floor to get square footage out. They don't, They need extra space in the garage to get out of their vehicles, so they, you know, we could shrink, you know, the garage with a couple feet if absolutely necessary. It's gonna make it hard for them to get out of their vehicles.
And it's also gonna impede the future chairlift that may need to go in.
Correct.
But if that's necessary, they're willing, you said, to bring in a little bit on the side, right? So how much square footage does that help on the side?
So the whole front to back is 41 feet long, and if we got rid of 2 feet, that's 82 square feet.
Okay, and then that would just mean that they would utilize the garage for the one who needs to utilize the chairlift, and the other one would be parked in the driveway, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so right now, is what you can say is that they are willing to cut off 173 square feet, right? Which would bring the variance down to, instead of them needing 3,100, right? They would be down to, it's never good when you have the attorney doing the math, I'm gonna tell you that right now. $2,927, correct? And 2,680 is what is permitted, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So they would still be over, but they would be able to cut off 173 square feet.
Yes.
So my last question then is, it's the wants of this specific client that's driving the size of this house, not development of the lot.
Correct. The function, I think no matter who tries to develop this piece of property, if they try to put a center hall colonial on this, a ranch, I think they're gonna have problems with developing this piece of property.
If I could just rephrase, it's not just wants, it's the needs of the homeowners with concerns as to mobility, design, moving around, and how this house will function as they continue to reside here, correct?
Correct.
And that's what mostly drove your design as far as how the rooms interplay, the sizes of the rooms, how the bathrooms were placed, the doorways. I don't know if your testimony was clear, some of the doorways have slightly wider thresholds to accommodate as well, correct?
Many of the doors were 3 foot wide to accommodate, you know, the bedroom doors, even the powder room doors, are 3 foot wide to accommodate, somebody in a wheelchair or a walker.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members?
We didn't really talk about any kind of landscaping, right? As far as other than the trees that we talked about earlier, on the east side, I think, of the property. What's the backyard gonna look like?
We would have to call back up Mr. Miola, and I can have him testify to that. My apologies, board member Webster, we should have addressed that better through engineering. So we can have him tackle that first when he comes back up. Oh, I'm sorry, board member Carr,
I'm
sorry.
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 Bobby's okay,
My apologies.
Questions? Board members? And members of the public, questions for this witness?
Yeah, I do.
If you come up, state your name and address for the record, please.
Bill Houston, 80 Glenbrook Road, Morris Plains, New Jersey. In your opinion, as an architect, if you're developing a house for somebody with a specific need, when that house goes for resale, do houses like that typically need to be then redesigned for a future owner?
I think with 3 bedrooms total, I would say no. Is there a limited, group of people who want to have the master on the first floor? Yes, there are, and many of those are elderly people or empty nesters, but there is a market for that. It's not like this house would sit on the market and nobody would buy it. We're doing many master downs at this point.
Sure, but specifically, some of the other features of the house, like the wider doorways and the wheelchair accessible bathrooms and that kind of stuff, those are, I believe you're saying those are larger than normal, right? That you would find in a normal home?
Correct.
Okay.
But it's doors, it's the finishes will be flush, there will be no steps inside, so nothing that is very specific, to this design. You know, having a 3.0 door in a bedroom, usually a door is 2.8 in a bedroom, and
Right.
this will be 3.0.
Okay.
Not significant.
Okay, so then it's reasonable that somebody who doesn't have mobility needs coming in after this owner is gone would maybe buy the house as it is and not need to wanna renovate it.
I would think so.
Okay.
I would see no reason to.
Okay, alright, thank you.
Questions, members of the public? Seeing none, the witness can step down.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one follow-up comment, please. I'm a little unsure exactly how the building height was calculated. So could you consult with Mr. Miola and make sure that you two are talking the same number here? I just want to be sure, because you're within 4 inches of the maximum building height. And if there was any confusion between you and Mr. Miola, I'd hate you get to a point of a CO and find out the building is 36 feet high. So let's make sure that you and Mr. Miola are on the exact same page.
Leon, if I could, I think this also ties to the half-story question, right? So I think there would need to be a demonstration, if this were approved, one of the conditions would be submission of, drawings with calculations coordinated between the architect and the engineer, one answering the half-story question, two answering the roof height question. Because how can we not?
Or that gets resolved before the board takes action. That's your choice.
Any opinion?
I do. Just one addition, on a related note. I know that it's been said a few times tonight that the maximum building coverage could be 2,680. And it, just for the purposes of the record, it's 2,679. No matter how it, I think based on what is what I understand to be the lot, the size of the lot. I know it's 1 square foot, but I just wanna be clear.
Thank you. And any of the follow-up questions, raised questions from board members? Public? Witness, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'd like to recall Mr. Miola.
And for clarity, he's now putting on his planner's hat.
He will in a moment. I want him to address the landscaping question first, which is a little of both, mostly engineering, but, goes to probably some of the arguments. So, Mr. Miola, before we delve too far, I'd like you to address board member Carr's question regarding landscaping and what is being proposed as part of the application.
There's no landscaping shown on this plan proposed. Normally we do it when we're doing the grading plan for building permit. My suggestion, whoops, I gotta flip that up one page. My suggestion would be the westerly property line between us and the neighbor, because you can see the neighbor's house, should have some type of evergreens to screen the two homes from each other, because there is no trees in that area. And along the back area, because the home behind us is relatively close to the rear property line. It would be good to have some screening there to also cover that. So I would think some type of evergreen, something that's not gonna grow excessively wide, but stay narrow and tall.
How many and how tall?
Okay, planted 6 foot tall is what I normally suggest, and how many, I would say you normally wanna plant them about every 5 to 6 feet on center, so. I'm scaling approximately 350 feet on the left side and the rear. If I scaled it, should I head it back? Let me make sure. It's 100. And that's 80. So that's 180. You're probably looking at about 30 evergreens,
Minimum of 30?
minimum of 30, yeah. I apologize if you heard me say 380, it's because I forgot, my scale doesn't have a 20, it's only a 40, so I've cut it in half.
Whatever species gets picked, let's make sure we have it deer resistant, I know Green Mountain Arborvitae is a
Yep.
deer resistant arborvitae. But let's not put up a spruce or a hemlock or something that just gets devoured by deer.
That's like candy to them,
Yep.
they love it.
What about any ground cover?
The
between
ground
trees
cover
and
would
the
be the
house?
lawn, they would put normal lawn down, you could vegetate, all of our slopes are such that you can mow them. We don't have very, very excessively steep slopes. Even to the rear, I think we set it 4-to-1 or 5-to-1, if I remember correctly.
How do you know when you remove all the vegetation that's there now, understanding that you have wells to take the runoff from the impervious surfaces? How do you know that moving all that vegetation, planting grass and putting in a few trees doesn't create a runoff problem for the house to the south?
I assume you mean to the north.
Is it to the north?
Right.
Downhill,
That's
right?
The one that's gonna be behind
Yeah,
it?
the one that's gonna be behind it.
Sorry.
Normally lawn and the trees are obviously gonna sit on a little bit of a berm. You don't sink them into the ground, so that'll help to hold the water a little bit too. The lawn is gonna absorb some of the water, and we're talking about the major runoff coefficients, which are the house and the driveway, are going to the dry well. Runoffs from a lawn area is in the ballpark of 30%, maybe 40 if you're pushing it. It's not like pavement, which is 90%, 99% runoff. So it gets absorbed by the ground. And soil erosion is gonna come out at the end of the process, and we have to now show to them that they haven't compacted the soil so much that it's not gonna allow the water to continue to percolate into the ground. We got a little device we have to put in the ground and show them that you can push it in 12 inches and stay under 300 pounds. So they do verify that, and if it doesn't meet that, then they'll tell him to scarify the soil. They come in with a Hartley rake, which has tongs on it, and turn the soil over and then reseed it. So there are protections in place between various departments.
And then Fred, also, you heard Mr. Hall wants an inlet at the end of the swale as well. That's
Yes.
gonna help,
Yeah.
with water into that drywall system as well, correct? And that's gonna
Yes.
take some of that runoff as well, correct?
Yes. And, you know, we're really gonna be talking about an area that's maybe 40 by 100. So it's 4,000 square feet. In drainage calculations, 4,000 square feet is a very small number. The amount of flow you get running off of that kind of site, especially when you calculate it at a 0.3 or 0.4 runoff factor because of the lawn, is gonna be very small. You know, I think the important thing we're doing is protecting the neighbor by catching all the water from the home and from the driveway and then putting that extra inlet in, which will catch the side lawn area. That's gonna drastically remove today it's going there now. It's woods, it's gonna have the same 3/10 runoff, but it's the whole lot. So the 19,000 square feet lot is now being brought down to about 4,000 square feet of area that runs off towards the neighbor. It's dramatic
Wait.
reduction.
You're saying, in terms of what runs off to the north, is going from the lot area, which is what, 19,000 square feet?
Yeah,
Down to a drainage of 4,000 square feet?
yes.
That's not accurate. The
Because
dry wells are only capturing the impervious surface, which is how much?
the impervious surface is, impervious surface is about 4,000 square feet.
All right, so we're taking 15,000 square foot lot, we're putting 4,000 of that, which is impervious surface, into the dry well. The remaining 11,000 square feet will run off, and that remaining 11,000 square feet will increase in flow because you're converting woods into lawn. Woods are the best in terms of absorbing stormwater, in terms of land use compared to a lawn. But that's okay, it meets our ordinance. Full-blown stormwater doesn't get triggered unless you disturb an acre. Anything under an acre, it's basically at your discretion based on 3 or 4 different factors. Is there a building coverage variance? Is there a total lot coverage variance? And is there disturbance on a steep slope? Based on any one of 3 of those factors, I think you have the legitimate right to have dry wells. And you have 2 of those 3 factors. You have steep slope disturbance and you have building coverage. So this is really just sound engineering practice. You take the entire impervious surface and you stick it into a dry well and you store 4 inches of runoff. Now, that's great. If it rains 6 inches of rainfall in 24 hours, there will be an increase in flow leaving this property. That's a fact. But it doesn't violate any of our ordinances. It doesn't violate RSIS. It does not violate any NJDEP regulations. In other words, the minimum area of disturbance the DEP and the stormwater management rules and regs look at is 1 acre of disturbance. Anything under that, it's really up to the local municipality. Now, some towns have this. It's called minor stormwater control. And it's an ordinance. It's very specific. As soon as you disturb either 2,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 square feet of land, you're triggered into this ordinance and it has very specific design criteria. We don't have that. But what you do have is the ability to ask for what I call minor stormwater control for variances for building coverage, lot coverage, and steep slope disturbance. But will there be a storm event where the property to the north experiences increase in stormwater runoff? Yes, there will. That's a fact. But it has to be more than 4 inches of rainfall in a day. Like today was only 3 inches of rainfall. People thought it was catastrophic. Today was the 2-year storm. That's all it was. The 2-year storm. Believe it or not.
And you have to bear in mind that Mr. Hall has already asked and we've agreed to put in that extra drain to catch the water, so that's gonna be catching that side area, which is also gonna probably require me to enlarge the dry wells to handle that extra runoff that now we're taking and bringing into it. So we may end up with 3 dry wells, you know, or 2 dry wells and more stone around it, depending on how the calculations work.
But more importantly, Mr. Miola, piggybacking on what Mr. Hall said, the drainage plan that's in place right now meets the ordinance requirements, correct?
Yes, it does.
And additionally, on top of that, the applicant is willing to tie in the swale, and if that means enlarging dry wells or adding a third dry well, the applicant's willing to do that. As Mr. Hall indicated, the steep slope, in his opinion, would also trigger needing these additional dry wells. And regardless of whether this house was over on building coverage or not, the steep slope variance is not gonna go away, correct?
No.
Right.
The property is
So
got a
no matter
relatively steep
what
pitch to it.
house gets built here, to piggyback off what Mr. Hall said, the person to the north at some point is gonna feel that regardless, correct?
Based on the storm event, there will
Yes.
be an increase in flow to the north coming
Right.
off this lot, that's a fact.
Right,
Yep.
so that's not just the size of the home, that's the steep slope and disturbance and the reality of developing a buildable lot within the municipality, correct?
Yes, and to point out that it's no different than the other lots on this side of the street that have homes already. That the grade is pretty consistent on all those lots to the rear, you know. I don't know if any of them had gotten steep slope variances or what, but they all have about the same kind of pitch. You know, as well as the ones across the street have the same kind of pitch, only it comes down to the road very steeply, and then storm drainage system in the road catches that.
So, Mr. Miola, switching gears now, I believe, the chairman asked you to do some calculations, correct?
Yes.
So, for clarity of the record, what was your understanding of what Mr. Chairman asked you to go back and calculate?
I went back and calculated the lots on Kosakowski as to what the total building footprint coverage, not footprint, total building coverage is. And I was busy back there running calculations when the architect was talking, so, but I will give you the numbers that I came up with. And I'll start with lot 82. Lot 30.03 came out to 22.3% coverage.
This is building coverage, correct?
This is total building coverage, total sum of the floors.
Oh, wait a
not-
second.
Which column?
Hold on. Building coverage or total floor area?
Total floor area, total,
That's not what I thought you were asked to do.
well then maybe I screwed up, because I did total floor area, which is the sum of both floors.
I think what
Variance
Mr.
is
Chairman,
building coverage, right?
right, was the variance for building coverage, Fred. For like an apples to apples comparison.
Well, the building coverage percentages are on there already. We have the building footprint, that's columns 5 and 6 have the building square footage and the percentage of building coverage on the lot. If that's what you're looking for, the numbers are already there.
I think we were trying to compare those other lots on the street. What is the building coverage and what is the maximum allowed building coverage on each individual lot, to see whether or not those lots conform to the ordinance. That's what I understood.
Yeah, you know that detailed calculation that you did to calculate the maximum permitted building coverage? What's that number, 2,679? That number.
Yeah.
It's a fairly detailed
In
calculation,
that
right?
case, I apologize, because I remember it was a detailed calculation, and I usually put copies of everything in the file. I didn't see it, so I didn't know what that number is, how I calculated.
Okay.
I don't know if it was a square footage of the lot or a percentage above a certain square
No,
footage.
the square footage of building coverage you have as column 5, you have the percent of building coverage in column number 6, but at least I think I brought it up and maybe the chairman also. What is the maximum permitted building coverage on those 8 or 9 lots, other than yours, on Kosakowski. Knows that detailed calculation that you did to generate the 2697 number? 79, I'm sorry. That calculation for all the other lots in Kosakowski.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I couldn't find in my file,
So once we have
so I'd
the
have to
ma-
do that one
the
separate.
maximum permitted lot coverage, we can compare it to the actual building coverage for each lot and see how many of the existing lots in the neighborhood either comply or don't comply.
And Liz, you laid that calculation out in your report.
I did,
2350 plus 7% of everything over 15,000?
that is correct, and that would apply to every property except for two lots actually exceed 25,000, and so it's a slightly different calculation.
Yeah, based on the lot area, there's a certain range of lot area that dictates a certain calculation, but if you go to the ordinance, it's very clear what you have to do.
Right, so, Mr. Chairman, in light of what Mr. Miola has just indicated, at this point in time, I would request that, we be asked to be, carried with no additional notice to the board's next meeting, available date, hopefully in January after your reorg, or if you do a same day as reorg, I'm not sure, so that Mr. Miola can calculate the correct information and have that when he provides his planning testimony, as that is certainly a key point in the planning testimony.
And Leon, do you think it would be prudent to have the plans revised to reflect the reduced square footages that were talked about, with the garage being reduced and the front porch, and the plans revised, or you're comfortable moving forward with the information that they're suggesting they bring?
If I may offer a compromise, could we do those but have them as an exhibit rather than 10 days prior, given the holiday season and, getting stuff submitted?
What about the height?
Yeah, well, that's, I'm gonna get to that.
Yeah, I guess I'm confused here. It's the applicant's application, right? They're allowed to process it any way they want. We've talked about 3 or 4 different potential changes. Are they gonna eliminate the front porch just down to a very small covered entryway? That's on them. I mean, I don't wanna tell them how to process their application. I mean, Mike, tell me if I'm wrong, but they can pursue this application the way it's presented here tonight,
Yeah,
right?
they can ultimately ask for a vote for what they came in with.
Right,
Which was the 3,100 square feet
right.
building coverage. Or they could amend the application and do 1 or 2 reductions. They talked about reducing that front porch area, they talked about reducing the size of the garage.
Correct.
That would be up to them. But I don't know if if the board wants to jump in and guide them.
So, what I would look for is clarifying information, so roof height clarification, if that's a diagram with math.
Mhm.
Story versus half-story clarification, that's a diagram with math, and I think these are exhibits. Right, I mean, 11 by 17s get handed out and get left here in public. Beyond that, I'm not suggesting that we need to see building changes at this time, I'm not.
Okay.
I mean, if the applicant wants to revise their
Not
application,
stopping it,
that's up
right,
to
not
them.
stopping it.
But if they do change the footprint of any part of the building, I think that's a formal resubmission, 10 days prior to the next hearing, because the public has a right to know what the board is considering. That's my
Well,
opinion.
but I mean, if we were finished tonight and we got all the information, the board could take action and say, remove the X amount of square feet off the front porch and remove the X amount of square feet from the garage, and we could take action on that.
Mhm.
So, I'm not sure I 100% agree with that.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Back to clarifying information. I think some of the math that we talked about, right, that Liz covered in her memo. I think for that site percentage, the roof and the floor area of the attic, to see whether it's a story, half story, or none of the above, are most pressing in my mind.
And if Mr. Miola is gonna submit the calculation of maximum permitted building coverage on these additional 8 or 9 lots, I would need some amount of time to review that. I mean, I can't review that on the fly as an exhibit the night of the public hearing.
What's our January meeting date?
The January meeting date is January 22nd, and if I make a suggestion, just because it's January, inclement weather and everything, normally you carry till the end of February.
You've given us an extension to the end of
The
February.
extension to the end of
Okay.
February.
Ms. Stone Doherty, would you grant an extension of time for the board to act through the end of February 2024?
Yes, and will be carried to January
Before
20th.
we do the carry, I have a question. Do you wanna wrap up the engineering testimony so it's closed and over? Or do you wanna carry the engineering as well as the planning testimony into the next meeting?
I think I'm in a quandary, because I think no matter what, when he comes back with the calculations, that's on the engineering side,
Okay.
so we're still gonna be engineering then going into planning, but I appreciate the suggestion, yes.
All right. All right, so is there anything else from the applicant's attorney tonight before I ask?
The
the
only
board
thing
for
I
motion?
can say is, Mr. Hall, since the next meeting is not till January 22nd, I feel confident that Mr. Miola should be able to get you over those calculations at least 10 days prior by the 12th, so that you have time to verify the numbers,
That's fine,
okay?
10 days is adequate.
All right, so I can tell you from a January perspective, we have a reorganization meeting, which moves along pretty timely. We have continuation of another hearing. We will put you before that likely more lengthy continuation.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Would there be a motion from a board member?
Real quick, so just to be clear, what we're looking for, like you said, the second story, the clarification on the half story, and then what I'll call column 6, getting the calculation for the percentage of building coverage, like the maximum number, so we can compare to that's.
And roof height.
Right, I'm sorry, yes, that is
Building height, but,
Building height,
yeah,
sorry.
but you're right.
I'm not good after 10. Building height.
Building 10.
Okay, thanks.
Is there a motion from a board member to carry this application to the January reorganization meeting with no need for additional notice?
So moved.
Mr. Carr moved, second.
Second.
Mr. Baza. Karen, roll call, please.
Okay, Mr. Baza?
Yes.
Mrs. Cortez?
Yes.
Mr. Carr?
Yes.
Mr. McCabe?
Yes.
Mr. Schultz?
Yes.
And Mr. Franciotta? I'm
Yes.
sorry, I didn't hear who first or second there.
Mr. Carr. And Mr. Baza.
Okay, and that's the extension of time, correct?
Yes, they granted us an extension of time through the end of February 2024.
Right.
All right, for the record, this is carried until the January reorg meeting. No need for additional notice, thank you.
Thank you.
New business. We have, Karen, we have meeting dates?
Yes, you have the calendar in front of you.
Is it the usual?
It's the usual, nothing really changed that time.
So we're moving up December because of the holiday, any other months off
Yes,
cycle?
and I don't think, I believe even in, May, everything is fine.
Okay. All right, do we need a motion, or would you bring back a resolution in January?
I'll give you the resolution in
All
January.
right, so this is informational so
Yes.
far. Okay, thank you. Any other new business? Old business? Any old business?
Nothing comes to mind.
Looks like the May meeting is moved up because of Memorial Day.
Okay, so May and December, off cycle.
The May meeting is the third Monday rather than the fourth because of Memorial Day.
Okay.
All right, is there a motion to? So moved. Second? All in favor? Aye. 10-10, thank you, everybody.
Mike and Doug.